And we're live. Wow, there was no sound or anything this time. It just went live.
Wow,
Usually there's the sound that lets you know, okay, things are live.
I was scratching my nose.
Hello, people of the internet. Welcome to UnleashTV, our weekly show from UnleashThePhones.com, where we talk about the news and mobile. Over the last week, nothing much happened except for one or two significant developments. Apparently, Google now does not notify you when your show starts. But so apologies for the unprepared starting. Okay, let's. Alvin's joining me as usual, and he has had a very interesting experiment this week where he is so in love with his 720 that he kind of missed it while he was trialing the very beautiful Xperia 1 compact. So I think you're completely nuts, but we'll talk more about that later in the show. All right, let's talk about the quick bit of news first. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, well, Skype for iOS got a huge redesign. It's now focusing on group messaging instead of calls, which is, which is, I mean,
And what they mean by huge redesign is that they made it look exactly like the Windows Phone version. So
does look
that,
exactly like
that,
the
there you
Yes.
go. Well, okay. Well, I've got an interesting anecdote about Skype. I kind of convinced Justin to switch from Hangouts to Skype. So this has been the third time we've made a transition in messaging platform.
Wow.
Because at first when we first met we used Facebook Messenger. Then I decided I didn't like Facebook Messenger. I told him let's go to Hangouts. Hangouts is the
Ooh,
best.
ooh, ooh, ooh. On that note, Facebook Messenger for Android and iOS also got an update this week, which allows you to send short videos and pictures to each other, kind of like Snapchat. Like you just press the button and it records the video, and if you just tap the button, you take a picture instead. And the way it works is very simple. When you press the picture or video button, the keyboard goes down, and that area becomes a viewfinder. So your messaging UI is still on top with the little tiny viewfinder below it. I found it very Snapchat inspired,
That's
but
cool.
yeah.
But I don't use Facebook. Yeah, we switched to Hangouts when I was using an Android phone as my primary device, and now that I switched to Windows Phone, I convinced him to use Skype. Obviously, WhatsApp is still something that we use because WhatsApp still is the most reliable and the most instant thing that we can find. But for computer to phone messaging or just for other things, I've managed to get him to move to Skype again. And so this makes my experience using a Windows Phone easier because then I don't have to fiddle with an instant messaging client that looks like it came out from the 1980s to get it to work on Windows Phone, and every few days it tells me lost connection to Google server. Please re-authenticate. Yeah.
So how has your experience? See, okay, so Windows Phone 8.1 brings nice Skype integration to it. Skype is a lot more tolerable on Windows Phone 8.1, but you're using Windows Phone 8.0.
Yeah.
So how is that? How has
It
that been?
basically works as an app. So you won't get the integration with the call UI and whatever, but you still get notifications when the app is closed, and it works like any other messaging app on Windows Phone. So I don't really think it's as bad as people think it is.
Hmm. All right. I made one Skype call this week on Windows Phone, and the experience was pretty good. It wasn't crazy convenient, but I don't know. I want to say it might. I'm scared if I say the good things about Microsoft, they'll mess it up. So, so I'm just gonna say it's okay.
Even on Windows Phone 8.0, when I make a voice call using Skype, and I tried that, when I can use the rest of the phone, and it will occupy the top bar where it tells you that there's an ongoing call, just like a standard
iOS.
phone call. So that's
Yep.
quite cool as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. So let's move on to other things. SwiftKey, everyone's favorite third-party Android keyboard. Now, I used to be a huge swipe user, and then Atif, good old Atif, he convinced me. Well, and he convinced me by mentioning it over and over and over and over and over again to use to try out SwiftKey. And ever since I used SwiftKey, I've been a big fan of it. Ever since they got the nice glider type SwiftKey flow functionality. SwiftKey is now free. So whatever Android phone you have, you can download SwiftKey and try it out right now. It's a freemium kind of model wherein the keyboard is free and most of the features are free,
Yeah.
but you pay to download themes.
You're going to have to pay for the themes and stuff. And for those people who have already paid for it, you get 10 free themes, free premium themes from the store. So, I have paid for SwiftKey, as many people have. I feel like it hasn't. It used to be great. Now, it's more mixed because I honestly would prefer to use the Google keyboard on Android rather than SwiftKey. And the reason why is because I think Google keyboard looks better, and also because Google keyboard seems to be more responsive. The thing about SwiftKey is that sometimes it can have a bit of lag in terms of its responsiveness to your touch, and that problem hasn't really been addressed. And this is all very anecdotal. I can't prove it, but it just feels more fluid to type with Google keyboard on an Android phone rather than SwiftKey. I feel like it's gotten bogged down a bit with the ensuing updates ever since it first hit the scene. So
as with every bit of software ever to exist, yeah, they throw in so many. For example, just to show you now, SwiftKey allows you to resize it, as you can see right there. You can also undock it from the lower part and move it around the screen if you want. And there's themes, and there's emoticons now. Yay!
Yeah.
Emoji. So they have thrown a whole bunch of stuff in there, and I will say that it does feel slightly laggier than the SwiftKey version before the themes.
do you like the new themes?
I don't like any of the free themes. I found them really, 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 really ugly. But right now I'm using this very iOS-inspired keyboard.
Funnily enough, I think I'm using the same one as well.
Oh no. So yeah. I don't know, man. How hard is it? Why is SwiftKey so bad at making proper themes? Like, what happened to that?
So with iOS 8, SwiftKey has announced that they will be bringing SwiftKey to iOS as well. So I have a theory that they have made it look more like an iOS keyboard in this new version, so that when the iOS 8 version eventually comes out, they will have a consistent product across the platforms. And so, I mean, it's great for iOS users, I guess, and I'm sure that when it comes out for iOS, it'll be free as well. But for us, I just wish that they would go back to the simpler times of SwiftKey when it was actually fast and efficient, rather than now where it can be kind of slow sometimes.
Yeah, but this also comes along with news that SwiftKey is making an iOS keyboard as well now that iOS 8 has support for third-party keyboards.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I wish them the best with this new strategy of theirs because they were making a killing before. They didn't really need
They are
to.
like near the top in terms of paid apps in the Play Store.
So they didn't really need to be to go freemium. I don't know. It's strange. Speaking of freemium stuff, Angry Birds Epic, the new role-playing game from Rovio, isn't like your.
I cannot believe we are still getting.
There's still Angry Birds games. But now it's not the same old fling a bird at something. It's now a proper role-playing game. I haven't tried it out, to be very honest. I
haven't tried out either because I'm on a Windows phone.
Well, I think it's available for Windows Phone too. I'm not sure.
Oh.
I'm not sure. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
I used to be the biggest advocate for Angry Birds, but now I'm so over it. Oh my god. Seriously, guys.
When in 2008, when iPhone got the App Store, then we got Angry Birds, right? That's when it happened. And
didn't Angry Birds start out on the N900?
Well, the N900 came in 2009.
Okay. So it was on
in 2008. So,
so it was iPhone first, then
iPhone
N900.
first, then everything else. So,
Okay.
so since then, it has been 5 years. 5 years of Angry Birds games. Can we move on now? I
No.
mean,
But
why are we still
I don't.
stuck
I
with
mean,
Angry Birds games?
look at it this way. Look at it this way. This is the main moneymaker for Rovio right now. They're not gonna let go of it at all. There's a
I
ton of
don't
Angry
even
Birds
think
merchandise.
Angry Birds Go was that successful. It fizzled out. In fact, every single game after Angry Birds Space has kind of gone nowhere really. So really, I think the only thing that is sustaining them now is the merchandise. And it's the merchandise
The
that they
merchandising,
continue to
yeah.
sell to children whose parents buy them Angry Birds things.
And
So
they're really expensive merchandise, just so you know. So yeah.
yeah,
I guess so. I don't know. They have a TV show now, I think.
brilliant.
I think they're making a movie as well, right? Wasn't there a rumor that they were making an Angry Birds movie?
Uh,
I don't know,
I
man.
don't know.
It's a lot of Angry Birds going
They're
around.
just a lot of work. So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll
Speaking of
move
more,
right along.
speaking of more of the same, uh, there's a very 630 inspired Nokia Lumia 636 and Lumia 628 that was announced in China. These look exactly like the 630.
These are basically Chinese variants of the 630 because they use
Yeah.
slightly different networks in China
Ooh,
and the rest of the world.
but 1 GB of RAM.
Yes, that is well. Now that seems a bit unfair to the rest of us, isn't it?
I know, right? I mean, what? Why? What? I don't understand why would a variant of the 630 have 1 GB of RAM while the 630 itself has just 512 MB of RAM? I don't know, man. I don't know.
You should have just added one more chip. With
Maybe.
everything that you've taken out of the 630 that should have been there, like a proximity sensor, like an ambient light sensor, like NFC, like 720p display, like even high amplitude mics. There's only one standard mic. You
So
could
the six-
have put in at least 512 MB more of RAM, so
And the
that
630, like my 630 review is like done. It's done. It's ready to go up. It was supposed to go up last week, but I'm sorry, guys, something came up. But the 630 lets go of a lot of stuff to achieve that low
it lets go of
price.
so many things.
There's
that
no
are taken for
proximity
granted.
sensor, dude. There's no
Yeah.
proximity sensor. I mean, what? A proximity sensor. This is the first phone I've reviewed without a proximity sensor. I'm pretty sure, because
Yeah.
first touchscreen phone that I've reviewed without a proximity sensor. Because now,
The only Nokia touchscreen phones that have not had a proximity sensor in the past are the S40 Touch and Type models, as well as the C503, which was a touchscreen phone, the most basic S60 V5 phone you can imagine, didn't have a proximity sensor. Now this 630 is supposed to be. I mean, it's not like we're going to get a 730 or a 830 anytime soon, right? Nokia needed to make.
oh god, I feel so bad for the A20, like so bad.
Yeah,
That poor phone. That poor phone.
Everyone forgot about it like a week after it came out. But this 630, I just can't imagine that there's just no defending the number of cuts that have been made to this phone in order to get it down to this price point. And honestly, the price point isn't that low. It isn't as low as I would imagine a phone without a proximity sensor, with an ambient light sensor, without an LED flash. You don't even get an LED flash. You don't even get a camera button. I mean,
Yeah, that was fun. I mean, well, in its defense, it still does have a quad-core processor, so.
it's a Snapdragon 400. I mean, the
The
Moto.
same one that's using the
G
Moto
has
G.
it. Yeah.
Exactly the same processor.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
But basically, if you are in China, you can get a slightly better 630 that has 1 GB of RAM that will probably be much more future-proof than the 630 itself.
Yeah. Speaking of
Oppo.
Chinese phones, Oppo released. They launched and released two phones in India, the Oppo Find 7 and the Oppo Find 7A. The difference with this though is that the Oppo Find 7 is a 2K resolution display phone,
Yeah.
and it's priced cheaper than any of the flagships by a massive 10,000 rupees. It's
Yes.
cheaper than the HTC One M8. It's cheaper than the Galaxy S5. It's cheaper than the Xperia
It
Z2.
may be. It may be, but it's Oppo.
But it's Oppo.
Yeah, and you are going to get Oppo's software layer and have to live with it somewhat if you get this phone.
I
The
think
Find
Oppo should give
7A,
away. I think Oppo should give away that little mascot toy thing with all of their phones.
yeah, that's cute. Anyway, in related news, Oppo is opening up a retail store in Singapore, so we will have more Oppo phones to get here quite soon. But basically, the Find 7 is a 2K screen phone. The Find 7A is a 1080p version of that same phone.
That same
Both
phone.
have flagship level specifications. Both don't cost that much. But honestly, if I were you, I would still consider getting a phone from a mainstream smartphone manufacturer rather than a Chinese one.
Suppose Oppo gave away that little mascot thing with their phone. Would it be?
I would be more convinced. Yeah.
Exactly, right? Exactly. Yeah. Oh well. So yes, the Oppo Find 7 and 7A are now
Both are
available. Yeah.
5.5-inch screen phones, by the way, so they are quite
Yes.
large.
Quite
And
large.
they also have this notification light at the bottom that fills up the whole bottom. It
Thing.
extends across the whole bottom bezel, so it's a skyline notification light. I actually think it looks quite cool, but
Mhm.
it's only blinks in blue, so that's something that you would have to take note of. It has a 13 megapixel. Oh yeah, this is the phone that can take 50 megapixel photos
Yes,
by
that is.
string together 13 megapixel frames. So if you think that is of any value to you, then you can get this one as well because it does that stitching thing with the 13 megapixel sensor. 13 megapixel sensor is from Sony, so you should expect
Oh
similar
crap.
quality.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Let's move on.
and yeah, and so I think that we should now talk about HTC because they have
Yay. Okay.
updated the Gallery app in the One M8.
Yes,
And
the HTC One M8 now allows you to adjust the level of UFocusness. So now, if you see, uh, there's a little bar over there, so you can adjust how much blur you want on the background. Previously,
yeah,
you couldn't do this, so sometimes
Sony did that first.
yeah, I know, but before that, it would blur the heck out of the background to an extent where it would look really cheesy sometimes.
Yeah.
I also have something to report about my HTC One M8. The camera lens has issue that I talked about this last week. I'm pretty sure. Did I? Yeah.
It's
So
crashed up.
apparently, yes. So apparently, this is very common, and it's a film that can be removed using various magical things like toothpaste and rubbing it up against it or something. I just don't have the balls to do that.
I don't
Yeah,
think
yeah.
I would
I don't have the balls to do
toothpaste
that.
to that lens
I'm not gonna do
or
that. Yeah.
rub it against anything.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that.
That's what
I'm just gonna live. The problem though is that all of my pictures are coming out horribly blurry now, like terribly blurry, and I don't know what to do about it. I'm just hoping. I don't know.
If HTC had better support in India, you could do something about it. But
Unfortunately, I'm in the middle of nowhere right now, so maybe next time I go to Delhi. I don't know. Let's see.
yeah.
Moving on.
Google now.
Google Now gets better and better. Google Now this will come in useful for Al because he takes the subway everywhere. Google Now will automatically notify you when you get close to your bus stop or a subway stop. And it does this based on time, not on location. So even if you lose signal, it'll still buzz and
That's
try to
smart
notify you.
because signal
Yeah.
can be pretty horrific in the subway.
Yeah, yeah. The I can see this coming in very handy for people that go to work and come back from work, or go to college and come back from college every day, and want to
Yeah.
catch a little nap. I'm not sure. I haven't tested it out, so I'm not sure how effective it is. But hey, it's
And
it's
it would
cool.
be
It's nice.
useful to me if I still use an Android phone, but now I'm all up with Windows Phone, Microsoft.
Well, you have Cortana, and well, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Let's move on to main topics. Woo! Let's talk
Yay.
about why Alvin is so sad about and missing his Windows Phone this week. It's because he's using a Xperia Z1 Compact.
So
Yay!
I've had the Xperia Z1 Compact, and since I finished my review of the Nokia XL, which was one of the most enjoyable reviews to write in a long time, um, just read the conclusion. I have been looking at the Xperia Z1 Compact, and it is the 4.3-inch mini version of the Xperia Z1. So I went into this phone thinking that I would really like it, and I have to say that even though it is a very competent phone, it is a very good phone, I still have to say that I'm not sure that I would get the Z1 Compact over the Z2. I feel like I would pay the little bit of extra money to go to the Z2 because the Z1 Compact does have compromises that may take some appeal away from this phone for you. And
What compromises are you talking about? Because is it the keys? Because I agree about the keys. The keys are terrible.
yeah, first the buttons are terrible.
Yeah.
I actively miss the buttons on my Lumia 720 all the time I was using this phone because these buttons are so stiff. Even the camera button is so stiff, and it was really difficult to take a photo with the Z1 Compact using the physical camera button without inducing shake into the photo because it needs so much pressure in order to depress the button to the second stage. Also, another compromise is that these days I feel like Android is almost made for bigger screens, especially Sony's UI. I think that in many cases, the UI on the Z1 Compact can come across as quite cramped, which is crazy because the Z1 Compact has a 4.3-inch screen, and just a couple of years ago we didn't think that 4.3-inch screens were small, but now it really is. Everything looks very small on this screen, and I don't know whether it's just the scaling or it's the fact that on Android things tend to be more packed together, but even for the icons and the keyboard and stuff, I feel like it's a bit too small to really type on comfortably. I miss a bigger screen with an Android phone. Another compromise is that now the camera, I'm not sure whether it's just my unit, but it doesn't seem to be as good as the camera on the Z2. Maybe it's the software. Maybe they have not updated the Z1 Compact with the same algorithms that they use in the Z2, but this has the same camera hardware as you would find the Z2. And I found that it isn't so accurate on white balance. I typically had to correct white balance automatically in order to get the desired shot, in order to get the scene looking more similar to real life. Because I found that most of the time it tends to make shots look too cool looking. They look very blue, and so I always needed to switch the white balance to daylight or to something that would bring the color temperature back up.
My experience, I've been using the Z1 Compact to as my second phone this week because I've been trying to review too many phones at the same time, and I found the camera quality okay. I didn't find it bad. I mean, cold at all. But it might be because I don't know. Maybe I have to just look at it better, or maybe there's a difference in that software. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it is still a good camera. I don't know if it's as good as the Z2's camera because I feel like when I reviewed the Z2, it was really impressive, and it got things right every time. With this, it takes a bit more manual fiddling in order to get the shot to look right, and that's just something that you as a user would have to take note of if you got this one. I think the biggest compromise of all is the way that the Z1 Compact feels in the hand. I thought that the plastic bag would not create such an impact, but it does.
I told you. It feels cheapish compared to the Z2.
It feels cheap, and the Z2 and the Z1 have glass on the back, and when you have glass, it feels cool because the glass has a lower temperature than plastic. It doesn't retain heat so well, and it conducts heat away from it. So when you pick up the Z1 or Z2, the glass back feels cool to the touch. It feels smooth, and it doesn't attract as many fingerprints as the Z1 Compact. I could not get the Z1 Compact to look clean, even after washing it, because when it comes to plastic, the the fingerprints and the oil from your fingers tend to stay on the plastic even though you have blasted it with water. So it can look very bad on the back after a while, especially if you live in a very hot place and your phone gets gunked up quite easily.
Yeah.
So I have to say that when it comes to the Z1 Compact, the biggest disappointment for me is honestly the material of the backplate. And I know that's a very nitpicky comment to make, and the build quality of this phone is still much better than what you would expect out of a Samsung phone. But coming from the Z2 and the Z1, having reviewed both of those phones, I wish that they had stuck with glass for the back rather than replace it with plastic, because now that it's plastic, it really is no different from a Samsung phone. Glossy plastic on Samsung phone, glossy plastic on Xperia Z1 Compact. It's about the same. I also think that I just feel like throughout my time with the phone, the screen is too small for me. And that's funny because the Lumia 720 also has a 4.3 inch screen, and I don't think that's too small. I think it's also because everything on Windows Phone is larger on that same size of screen than on Android, where things are smaller and you get pretty small buttons, especially for the navigation controls. And so when it comes to the Z1 Compact, I think that it will appeal to the sort of person who's looking for a flagship Android phone to replace an iPhone, because both are about the same size. But I also feel that for the price of the Z1 Compact, it can be worth it to go to step up to the Z2 or the Z1, because I think that the experience is much better on both of those devices, even though the Z1 Compact is much more portable and much easier to use with one hand. Both of those are still advantages of the Z1 Compact, but I think you ultimately get more out of a larger phone when it comes to Android than a smaller one. Battery life on this phone has actually been pretty good. I have managed to get comfortably 1 day with still quite a bit of charge left at the end of the day. So I don't think the decrease in battery size is really a compromise here. Somehow it has been very well optimized in terms of how much battery it takes up in standby mode particularly. Of course, if you push it, it will still be quite heavy on the battery with all its high-powered components inside and the screen and the Snapdragon 800. No problems with performance. I just feel like it is a phone that is a bit difficult to love, especially when even powering it on requires your attention, because it doesn't have double tap to wake. And
Yeah,
so yeah,
I found it really weird as because I got so used to it on the Z2.
yeah,
Um, I don't know why Sony is making it so everything's everything feels all their phones feel different at this point. Like some have double tap to wake, some don't. They're all flagship phones. Technically, the Z1 Compact is also a flagship phone.
yeah.
Technically, um, I don't know. I don't know why they wouldn't bring that in.
Yeah, so it doesn't have double tap to wake, which means you're going to have to press that power button many, many times. So before you buy the phone, you better make sure that you are fine with the power button. Because for me, I'm not really. It's really stiff. Every time I power on the phone, it takes effort to do it, and I think that as first world problem as that may sound, it does impact your experience of using the phone, especially when there are other Sony phones that don't have problems with the buttons. I think the Z2's buttons are fine, for example. I think they're great. So the Z1 Compact is quite expensive as well. It's about 760 Singapore dollars without a contract. That's quite expensive. I think you can get the Z1 for about the same or less. So that's also another thing with the Z1 Compact. Right now, it's still may be a better deal to get the Z1, because you do get more phone than with the Z1 Compact. And ultimately, even though it's a competent phone, I think it does fine. I think it meets one's expectations of a flagship phone. I don't really love it in the way that I love the Z2 and I love the Z1. So that's
let's
the deal with this one.
let's also put it up against the other flagships. Like, what do you think about Z1 Compact versus HTC M8 or Galaxy S5, or for that matter, any of the minis like the HTC One Mini,
Well,
M8
yeah,
II?
I think that when you face it out against the rest of the Android flagships, including the Z2, it has appeal because of the size. There are many people who don't like a large phone. There are many people who don't like the S5 size or the M8's even larger size, or the Z2's clunkiness, because the Z2 is big and it's tall. It's a very imposing phone, and some people just prefer a smaller phone. So if size is very important to you, and you want a high-end phone, then the Z1 Compact is going to be your only option, unless you get something like the 925, which is still considered kind of high-end, but it's small. That's on the Windows Phone side, or there's also the iPhone 5s. So your options, if you want a small flagship phone, are quite limited. And so in that way, the Xperia Z1 Compact does well. I'm just saying that if size is not so important to you in deciding whether you would which phone you would get, then the Z1 Compact doesn't have that much appeal there, because as a small phone that has flagship specifications, it is unmatched. But if you stop considering the size as a top priority, then it starts to look a bit compromised when you face it up against the flagships of today. Especially when you can get much more choice in terms of 5-inch and above Android flagships, instead of settling for the Z1 Compact, which you may not find very comfortable to use. Against other mini phones, there's no contest that the Z1 Compact. Just don't bother with the HTC One Mini 2, the HTC One Mini, the Samsung Galaxy S4 Mini, or whatever. They are just not worth considering, because they are mid-range phones that have flagship branding, and they are clearly attempts by the manufacturers to cash in on the flagship brand, as we have mentioned before. They are not worth buying in any way. Honestly, if you are interested in the HTC One Mini 2, you might as well get an HTC One M7, because they are about the same size.
I know that, right? Why not get the M7? The M7 is still a perfectly good phone.
And if you actually want a mid-range phone, get the Moto G, because that's a perfect mid-range phone, not these watered-down versions of flagship products. So this ties in with another thing that I've been thinking about writing an editorial about, and it's the fact that I think I now prefer to use a Windows phone than an Android phone. And this also comes with, and I kind of need to set this up a bit, because I know just a few months back I was saying I would never use a Windows phone as my primary phone. But I need to set this up a bit. Now, we all know that that generally security on the internet and privacy is now something that is more at the forefront of our minds, especially after we learned about what the NSA is doing, and we opened our minds to the fact that our governments could be doing the same. So, so with that, I kind of decided that, okay, I better not be so invested in Google. I can't have Google as my only provider of cloud services, because the thing is, Google may not have anything against me, and Google may not have any interest in finding out about me personally. That's true. I'm not going to be a paranoid, tinfoil hat person here. I know that Google is only interested in aggregating my data along with the data of millions of other people in order to show trends to advertisers, so that they will be profitable as an advertising company. Now, so I have nothing against Google. I think Google does great things. I think Google does some of the best products on the internet. I just don't think I should only use Google. I don't think I should have all my data stored with Google. Google should not have such a complete picture of me in the event that that my privacy on the internet is compromised. I don't want a single cloud provider to have such a complete and overarching picture of me that that could be used for maybe not so good purposes. It may not be Google who's doing it. It could be hackers who are doing it. It could be governments who are doing it. Basically, I think that it is a more secure measure to use the services from a particular company selectively, and to try to invest in more clouds, quote unquote, more clouds, so that in the case of there being a big security breach, or in the case of there being data exposed on the part of Google, it isn't such a catastrophic event, because not everything that represents me, not everything that I have is stored on Google. So that's basically something I've been thinking about. I also think that as someone who uses cloud services, it will be better for the internet if I support the services from more companies than Google, because I think that one of the trends of the internet is that it has become more and more centered around Google and around Facebook and other big internet companies, and I think that that is not a good sign for the internet, especially since the internet started out as a decentralized place that is now becoming more and more siloed off into the Google Cloud and the Amazon Cloud and the Microsoft Cloud. And for me, I want to support everyone. I don't want to have to be bound to a specific ecosystem that has its limitations as well. I think that we tend to go into the whole thing about Google and how its products make things so much more convenient for us, but we also don't think about the fact that we are actually giving out a lot of our data to Google, and the question is, what is that data being used for, and what is that data, and where is that data going? Who actually has access to this sort of information, and will this data that we are sending to Google be capable of letting someone or something know about us as complete identities rather than fragments? In the past, we are all internet users. Some of us are anonymous. Some of us choose how much data we actually want to give a particular service. When we signed up for Yahoo accounts, we didn't have to give as much of our information here as we are giving to Google today. Yahoo never knew as much about us as Google knows today, and so we always trade our information and our data for these services that add convenience and value to our lives. And the convenience and value is definitely there. We cannot explain that away. We can't make it smaller or less impactful than it actually is. Google brings a lot of convenience and a lot of value. But I also feel that I don't want a single company, a private corporation, to know that much about me. I don't want a government who may have links or who may have the ability to make reports to Google to release my data to know that much about me. And so I'm not saying it like I'm a terrorist or I'm trying to do something wrong. I'm just saying it as someone who likes to have some privacy. Especially since for me, I'm in a position where later in life or even now, I may find it necessary to maintain or protect my own privacy.
I have to say, out of all the reasons why I think you would choose Windows Phone over Android, that was not at the top of my mind. But yeah, you do make some good points. Unfortunately, both, like all the three major mobile operating systems are based in the US of A now. So I don't know, man. I feel like it's getting if on that note, it is getting harder to make sure that your data doesn't go around. But it's a good strategy. I mean, I personally I'm just like, hey, here's just monitor everything I do. I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I switched to Windows Phone with the knowledge that now it frees me up to use Google services for email, contacts, and calendar. I still use Google services for that, but I now have the best integration when it comes to using Bing for my search engine instead of Google. And I know what you're going to say, but
I'm sorry.
I know what you're going to say.
But hey, Apple, I mean, Siri uses Bing, so.
But but if we get over the fact that Bing is not Google and Google is not Bing, when you actually do the same searches in Bing, I find that I have no problem getting what I want either. It's almost as if I were using Google.
All right. I'm going to take your word for that. But
Yeah,
but hey,
and
maybe they've improved. Who knows? But
exactly. And
but
yeah,
speaking of Bing, um, did you eventually give Cortana a try this week?
I did. When I
And
used Okay, so when I had Windows Phone 8.1 installed on my Lumia 720, I don't have it installed anymore. I did try Cortana, um, and I still think it doesn't really do much for me, because first, I kind of have reminders and things I need to do stored in my brain. I don't usually enter them into my smartphone. I just manage them in my brain, and so um, and so I didn't feel like I really needed to enter my reminders into Bing in order to into Cortana to get it to remind me to do things. And also, it refuses to show me the weather in Celsius. Um,
yeah, I know what you mean by that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's not that I can't ask for it in Celsius. I'm sure I can ask for it, but in the info view in the main part of Cortana's user interface where it tries to be like Google now and give you news and whatever, it it refuses to show me the weather in Celsius. There's no way to change it.
Mm.
Hello, the US is the only country in the entire world that uses Fahrenheit. Microsoft, hello. um,
Well, in their defense, it's only meant for the US right now anyway. The UK and China are supposed to get support for it in the next
and
few weeks.
and the fact that it can give me news, Cortana does give you news headlines in the information view as well, but it gave me the shittiest headlines in the world, really.
I know.
It gave
The
me
same thing.
news from Fox News. Even the Americans despise Fox News. Why would I want to see links from Fox News in my Cortana? And there's no way to tell Cortana that I really don't want to see Fox News.
Yeah. So I mean, it's an interesting cross between Siri and Google now. So okay, so let's talk about this. So there's a rumor this week that Microsoft is looking to bring Cortana to iOS and Android.
Yeah.
Personally, I feel like they should get it to Windows on PC and everything else first, and then think about Android and iOS. But hey, this is the rumor right now.
They
The what do you think about this? Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad
they bring
thing?
up good points for justifying why Cortana should come to Android and iOS. The fact is that if Microsoft has Cortana working on Android and iOS, that means that for someone who's multi-platform, it makes Cortana more valuable for them. It also means that they can make Cortana better in a quicker way because the user base for Windows and Windows Phone is still very small compared to Android and iOS. And if they want Cortana to be better, they need more data from users.
Mm.
And in order to get those users, they would need to go to Android and iOS. Um, Now, but I also think that for Microsoft, they may have an interest in bringing Cortana to Android and iOS because they want Cortana to be part of their A-list web service offerings, just like Office, just like Bing, just like SkyDrive, OneDrive. So in that way, Cortana would be a valuable addition to Microsoft's presence on other platforms because let's not forget that they have already been doing Android and iOS apps for a while. In fact, with the Nokia XL, I kind of tried to see how many Microsoft apps I could get on the thing, right? Because out of the box, the Nokia XL only comes with Skype and OneDrive, which is nonsense. If it's meant to integrate with Microsoft services, where are the Microsoft services? I don't see any. So in that case, I was actually able to actually achieve a pretty good approximation of what you'd get out of the box on a Windows phone on the Nokia XL, because Microsoft's Android apps are actually quite exhaustive. You get, in fact, now with the addition of Office, it closes up a big gap in terms of what Microsoft can bring to Android. And so, coming back to Cortana, right now I think the reason why it just isn't very useful for me is because it's not just because of the US buyers, because of course Google now was first started out being useful in the US before being useful anywhere else. But um but why it isn't very good right now is because one, they haven't put in enough control for me to decide actually what I want to see. They ask about my interest, but they are still very general. They're still very general and very kind of wishy-washy with asking me about when I'm looking for a place to eat, what's most important to me. I mean, come on. It's not like you would have... I don't understand why they'll ask those questions. I suspect that they do ask those questions because they just don't have enough information about where I like to go on the level that Google has in order to provide all these services. And so they want to compete with Google with Cortana. They want to compete with Google now, and they want to compete with Siri, and the only way that they're going to do that is if they aggregate more data, because Siri is good, but it's also limited in that Apple doesn't really want to know much about you. Apple doesn't really want to collect a lot of information about you, and with that ethos comes the fact that Siri works in such a way that you need to ask it for things in order to get it to respond to you, and its capabilities are limited to a specific set of things. But with Cortana, Microsoft wants it to be more like Google now, but still working around a Siri user interface. And so, in order for it to be more like Google now, I will have to use Outlook for my mail, because it will read my mail to get details from it, like upcoming events and stuff. I will have to use Outlook email. I don't use Outlook email, I use Gmail. It's too much of a pain to migrate over to Outlook. I don't like Outlook's user interface anyway. So Cortana is always going to face a challenge in being intelligent, because Microsoft just doesn't know that much about me. And for me, personally, I would like that to remain that way, kind of. And so, it's the... When the news came out, when the rumor came out, Windows Phone people were so angry and so excited about it. Now, let us remember that Microsoft Office is still not in a touch version on Windows 8.1 when it already is on the iPad and on iPhone and on Android, with Android tablets soon to come. So Microsoft is indeed prioritizing other platforms when it comes to bringing its apps to it. They are actively thinking about having an offering on other platforms as well. And the thing about Windows Phone enthusiasts is that they think it's all about Microsoft, and Microsoft can succeed on their own. But for me, I am very realistic, and I think that's not the case at all. Microsoft needs to be present on Android and iOS in order to even have a chance of attracting people to Windows Phone, because it's not just about the exclusives you have. What good is it to have an exclusive on Windows Phone when it's... Honestly, Windows Phone is less than 10% in most of the developed smartphone markets in the world. What good is it to them? They would want to target Android and iOS because that's where the users are. And for these teams that are working in Microsoft to bring new features and new apps to Android and iOS, that is a perfectly fine strategy for them, because it will get them the growth and the profits and the users that they want. I think that Microsoft these days can't be just seen as a platforms company. It is a software company in the sense that they also make things other than software platforms. And in the past, they could rely on bringing things to Windows and Windows Mobile first and Windows Phone because they felt that they could succeed just with the strength of their own platforms. But now with Windows 8 and with Windows Phone, this is completely not the case. And I would think that it's healthier and better for Microsoft if they adopt this current strategy that they have of adopting a multi-platform approach to most of their apps and services. I think Windows Phone fans need to get over themselves.
Well said. All right. So that's on that note. That's pretty much our show for this week. We covered everything that we could cover. I'm not gonna make any guarantees of any reviews that I'm posting this week because whenever I do so now I'll just say that maybe some reviews will be posted this week. I don't know. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, we appreciate your feedback. Let us know what you think. If you know somebody that's using the Xperia Z1 Compact, let us know what he thinks of it so far. I have been keeping in touch with a couple of friends of mine who bought the Z2. The Xperia Z2 has an issue with heating, unfortunately. Like, there's a really silly bug that's going on. Even Alvin's first review unit had that same bug. Where it would just shut down the camera randomly, saying it's overheated. But it's
But it's not.
I don't know.
That's the
It's
thing.
not.
It's
Yeah.
not.
So I don't know what the hell Sony has done. Like Sony finally made the perfect phone, and
Man,
somehow it's messed up.
that
Um,
sucks, man. The
so
first review unit that I had on the Xperia Z2 was just broken, and I think
yeah,
that perhaps your friends have gotten units that have been afflicted by the same
yeah.
issues, and they will
So
need to be replaced by Sony.
so two of my friends have got units, and I really thought it was just a reviewer unit
Yeah,
issue,
I
but
thought it was just because they sent an early unit and it hasn't been ironed out yet. But
yeah. So this is a real problem. If you have an Xperia Z2 and you're seeing
yeah,
unnecessary heating issues,
just tell
just
Sony about it.
tell Sony. Because the unit I got was fine. Even the unit that Alvin got was fine. After he exchanged it back with Sony for a proper unit. So yeah, that's about it. So there you go. That's our show. As always, you can follow me and Alvin on Twitter at the link below in the description thing. And that's about it. Thanks for watching, guys. We will catch you next week. And is there anything more you want to say, Alvin, before we go? I guess that's it. All right. I'll see you guys. Take care. Bye.